Tonight, we investigate Harry and Meghan as the palace releases new records questioning their children's royal status.
Breaking news, and this one doesn't whisper, it detonates. End of 2025. The palace doors may look calm from the outside, but inside, the ground is shifting fast. King Charles isn't easing in. He's tightening the grip. Privileges slashed. Discipline restored. Titles suddenly tied to duty. Not blood, not sentiment, not sympathy. And right in the middle of that tightening vice sit Harry and Meghan watching the walls close in. This isn't gossip bubbling up from tabloids anymore. This is institutional pressure. Quiet, surgical, dangerous, because the message coming from the palace is no longer polite, and it's no longer emotional. It's simple and ruthless. If you don't serve, you don't represent. If you don't work, you don't wear the crown's rewards. And that message doesn't stop at adults, it echoes toward the children. And that's where panic enters the room. Reports start circulating, low at first, then louder. Whispers that Harry and Meghan aren't just worried, they're preparing to unleash something explosive, something designed not to argue, but to force. A pressure bomb aimed straight at the palace, because when you're cornered by procedure, you don't fight paperwork with feelings, you fight it with scandal. But the palace doesn't flinch. Instead of trading accusations, it does something far more dangerous. It opens the files, records, dates, decisions, no emotion, no defense speeches, just evidence placed calmly on the table like a dare. And suddenly, the question flips. When stories collide with documents, who survives? Under King Charles, power doesn't operate the old way anymore. This isn't about family loyalty. It's about institutional risk control. We already saw it with Andrew. Roles cut, visibility erased, the crown protecting itself, not individuals. So when Harry and Meghan sit outside that system, the implication becomes unavoidable. Titles are no longer guaranteed, even for children. And right at that fragile moment, Meghan posts a pregnancy-related commemorative video. She likely expected warmth, sympathy, nostalgia. Instead, the internet turns cold. People don't cry with her. They question her. The video was called strange, performative, unsettling. And then something darker resurfaces. Old suspicions crawl back into daylight. Fake belly rumors, staged imagery, Netflix-era optics. What once lived in fringe corners suddenly feels louder, sharper, unavoidable. And then the leap happens, the most dangerous leap of all. If the pregnancy wasn't real, then what does that mean for the children? And if that question is even allowed to exist, then titles, succession, legitimacy, everything becomes radioactive. This isn't about believing a rumor, this is about timing. Because while these doubts spread, the palace is already in review mode, cutting roles, reassessing connections, tightening definitions. And in that environment, silence isn't safety. Silence becomes exposure. Meghan knows this. So does Harry. Silence now could mean consequences later. And suddenly, reaching out to the palace isn't about reconciliation. It's about damage control. They act, not subtly, not indirectly. They send a letter, straight to England, direct, blunt, non-negotiable. The message is clear. We left our roles. Our children did not leave their bloodline. Archie and Lilibet must keep titles. Administrative changes do not apply to them. This is not a request. It's a demand. They draw a line. But the palace doesn't cross it. No comforting reply, no confirmation, no reassurance. Instead, a cold administrative response slips out through British radio. Records are being reviewed. Verification required. If discrepancies exist, titles may be adjusted or removed. That's it. No emotion. No defense. No promise. And that silence? It's lethal. Because when the palace refuses to speak loudly, the void fills instantly. Leaks. Sources. Rumors multiplying. Talk of total title removal, not just the kids, everything. A complete severing of Sussex influence from the royal court. Now it's no longer symbolic, it's existential. For Harry and Meghan, losing the children's titles isn't just about hierarchy, it's about narrative collapse. The identity they built post-royal life depends on those links. Without them, the story cracks. The palace operates slowly, methodically, by time and procedure. Harry and Meghan operate in media time. Hours feel like verdicts, days feel like executions. The clash is inevitable, and behind closed doors, the mood turns dark. Meghan lowers her voice, but it cuts sharp. If they stay silent and let this happen, we lose everything, so we make noise they can't ignore. Harry hesitates. What kind of noise? And Meghan answers without blinking. A story so big they have to choose. Keep our children's titles or face something they can't control. That's the moment the line disappears. Defense turns into offense. Survival turns into attack. And then comes the nuclear option. They unleash a new narrative, sharper, more explosive, designed to wound at the palace's most sensitive point, ethics. The message spreads fast. The royal family knew Harry had genetic or health risks. They pressured surrogacy. Meghan was forced to wear a fake belly. The image of natural pregnancy was staged to protect the institution. This isn't hinted, it's declared. The implication is brutal, that the palace prioritized image over health, succession over dignity, control over humanity. Netflix becomes the battlefield. Oprah 2.0 looms. Truths never told. Forced silence. Institutional cruelty. Emotional damage. Mental harm. And the condition is clear. Keep the titles. Or we keep talking. This isn't emotional storytelling anymore, it's leverage. But the palace doesn't respond with outrage. It responds with paper, records surface, timelines, photos, birth announcements, delays explained, private hospital choices confirmed. Certificate adjustments documented. No commentary, no insults, just facts. And then the palace does the most devastating thing possible. It doesn't deny them, it asks them to prove it. Where is the evidence? That single question changes everything, because now the rules are different. One side deals in emotion and narrative, the other deals in documentation. And once the documents are public, the burden shifts. The silence that once protected Harry and Meghan now traps them. And as the days pass, nothing comes. No proof, no medical records, no witnesses, no receipts, just silence. And in media, silence screams. The story starts collapsing under its own weight. Support hesitates, deals cool, momentum dies. And somewhere in Montecito, the realization begins to creep in. This wasn't just a gamble, it was a bluff. And the house didn't fold. And that silence, it doesn't explode. It erodes. Days pass, then weeks. And with every hour that Meghan produces nothing, no documents, no medical confirmation, no witnesses, no emails, the energy drains out of the story she once controlled so masterfully. What began as a moral thunderstorm slowly turns into something far more humiliating. Doubt. The media doesn't need the palace to attack anymore. It does the work itself. Commentators stop asking what the royal family did and start asking why, if the accusations were true, nothing concrete has appeared. Not a single receipt, not even a fragment. And in a world addicted to evidence, feelings alone don't survive long. The palace doesn't move another inch. It doesn't gloat. It doesn't clarify further. It lets the record speak and allows the silence on Meghan's side to do the damage. That's the most brutal part. There's no enemy to fight back against. No statement to counter, just absence. And absence turns toxic. Netflix executives start getting nervous. Stories that depend entirely on credibility suddenly feel radioactive. Projects quietly stall, meetings get postponed. Let's wait and see becomes the most dangerous sentence in Hollywood. It doesn't mean patience, it means doubt. The public moves on faster than Meghan expected. Not because they're convinced she lied, but because the story stopped giving them something new. Outrage without progression becomes exhausting. Sympathy without proof becomes awkward. Attention shifts elsewhere. And that's when reality hits hardest. Harry feels it first. He notices the tone change when he speaks to people. Less encouragement, more distance, less certainty. He starts replaying decisions in his head, agreeing to push this narrative, allowing the children's future to be used as leverage, letting accusations escalate without an exit plan. What if this went too far? What if the price is higher than the reward? For Harry, family was always the fracture point, and now the fracture feels permanent. The palace didn't slam the door, it stepped aside and let him fall through his own momentum. And suddenly, the idea of returning, not to power, not to privilege, but to some form of personal grounding, starts creeping in, quietly, shamefully, but persistently. Meghan, meanwhile, doesn't soften. She isolates. Inside the Montecito mansion, the silence is different, thicker, louder, it echoes. She walks the halls replaying everything, the interviews, the frames, the lines she delivered with such certainty, how confident she sounded, how untouchable she felt. Now those same words feel like a trap. Anger hits first, hot and relentless. How dare the palace respond like machines? How dare they reduce lived pain to timestamps and documents? How dare the public demand proof from her but accept royal paperwork without question? But anger burns out quickly when it has nowhere to land. Then comes regret, slow, poisonous. She checks her phone late at night, watching hashtags mutate, support fading, commentary turning analytical instead of emotional. That's the death knell. Once people start analyzing instead of feeling, the spell is broken. Friends stop calling, allies fade. Hollywood loyalty was always conditional, and now the conditions are unstable. Even Harry feels distant, not because he blames her openly, but because doubt has entered him, and doubt changes posture, tone, silence. Late night arguments flare. fair. Meghan insists they were right to fight, that backing down would mean losing everything anyway. Harry doesn't disagree, but he no longer sounds convinced. He wonders out loud whether confrontation without proof was a miscalculation. That question alone feels like betrayal to her. Paranoia creeps in. Every article feels coordinated. Every criticism feels planted. Every silence feels strategic. She starts seeing palace shadows everywhere, as if centuries of protocol are personally mocking her modern media instincts. Physically, the toll shows. Sleep disappears. Appetite fades. The energy that once fueled her presence dulls into defensiveness. Draft statements pile up and get deleted. Podcasts are imagined and abandoned. Books outlined and scrapped. Because now there's fear. Fear that speaking again without evidence would end everything permanently. And that's the cruel irony. A woman who mastered storytelling is now paralyzed by her own narrative. She pushed it to the edge and discovered the edge pushes back. The public doesn't turn violently against her. It does something worse. It forgets. Conversations stop. Debates fade. The story becomes a case study instead of a movement. And in media, being forgotten is heavier than being attacked. Attacks keep you relevant. Silence erases you. Harry sees it clearly now. Cutting ties didn't create freedom, it created limbo. Fighting the institution with emotion alone didn't expose it, it strengthened it. Because institutions don't bleed, they wait. Meghan becomes the center of a cautionary tale no one officially announces, but everyone quietly understands. About weaponizing media, about pushing accusations beyond what evidence can sustain, about mistaking attention for power. No verdict is issued, no announcement made, no titles publicly stripped in dramatic fashion, just consequences. Deals dry up, invitations vanish, influence evaporates. Not through punishment, but through withdrawal. And that's how it ends. Not with explosions, not with apologies, not with victory or defeat speeches, but with silence. Records stay on the table, accusations hang unanswered, and the world moves on, leaving behind a lesson sharper than any headline. When emotion challenges an institution built on records, emotion can only travel so far. When accusations outrun evidence, they don't collapse loudly, they fade. And fading, for someone who once controlled the spotlight, is the harshest ending of all. And now the question shifts to you. Was this a failed power struggle or a clear warning about the limits of media manipulation when confronting discipline, documentation, and time? Because in the end, the palace didn't win by shouting, it won by waiting. It won by waiting. It won by waiting. It won.